Love music, love life radio station. It's time for us to talk business with Rotus. And this morning, a lot of things in my mind. One of the first things I want to understand is why the price dropped below $0 per barrel. That was really shocking,
Yes,
Rotus.
yeah. Morning, Valentine.
Good
Morning,
morning to
Lagos.
you.
Yeah, there's been a bit of confusion with people reaching out to me asking, has crude oil dropped into the negative region? What's going on? So yeah, I'll be happy to explain what happened. Should you give them numbers? Or
Yes,
is that
please.
okay?
WhatsApp is working today. WhatsApp is 0809 We're streaming live on YouTube. Just type Smooth 91 FM Lagos. Go to Twitter. Use that hashtag Business Express 91.
Yes, sir.
When you
Yes,
tweet
sir.
at Smooth 91 FM.
Yes, indeed. So what dropped? Yes, the record drop we saw was in the May futures contracts for WTI. So there's two grades of crude. There's Brent crude, and our own grade, of course, is Bonny Light, which is a derivative of that. But there's WTI, which is West Texas Intermediate, and then there's of course your Brent crude, which is traded everywhere else. WTI is for the United States. So really, this really affected U.S. Oil with what they export. So I feel I should back up and explain this thing. So it's futures, yeah. So futures and forwards are hedging instruments. When you hedge, you are protecting yourself against price fluctuations in the future. So, I mean, assuming you're a farmer now and you sell bags of rice, a 50 kg bag of rice is what? 25,000 naira. You are planting your rice this year and you're going to harvest it in April of 2021. So a year from now. So, I don't know, what if Nigeria's irrigation system becomes fantastic, all of a sudden rice just explodes and everybody's a rice farmer? If we think that the oversupply of rice, if you think it's going to distort your price of rice in April of next year, you can protect yourself against the price fluctuation. So who knows? Maybe it's selling for 25,000 now. A bag of rice could be selling for 10,000 or 5,000 naira in April of 2021. So what you do is you enter into a contract where you lock in the price of that bag of rice at 25k, so you can sell it at 25k in April of next year. So you enter into that's hedging. You are hedging yourself and you're protecting yourself against a future price fluctuation of your commodity. So there's two ways to do it, and these are derivatives. And I'm sorry this is turning into a finance 101, but so they're derivatives. So you've got futures and you've got forwards. So forward contracts, if Valentine and I want to enter into this contract, forward contracts for the bag of rice, Valentine could be the farmer and he wants to sell me the bag of rice in April of next year. We enter into a forward contract. Forward contracts they are customizable. So that means that we can amend the contract how we like. But the key thing with forward contracts is that there is no middleman, there's no exchange. It's just Valentine and I that are entering into that contract. So we can default. Valentine can either not deliver the bag of rice a year from now, or I can decide not to pay. So there's a high level of default risk with forward contracts. Also, forward contracts can be traded on an exchange, like a stock exchange. Now, futures contracts, which is what we're talking about today, what happened with WTI futures contracts. Futures contracts are standardized contracts. So Valentine and I would enter into a futures contract for me to buy his bag of rice a year from now. There will be a middleman, an exchange. It's okay, Rotus, deposit 10% of that 25k, or Valentine, bring half the bag of rice. There's an actual contract that is standardized, a middleman that will make sure there's no default and that the contract is executed. Also, Valentine can decide to sell his contract to somebody else, another rice farmer who will deliver the rice to me. I can decide to exit the contract before next year and have somebody else buy it from him. So futures contracts are more flexible and they are traded on an exchange. So this is what we saw yesterday with the WTI futures dropping. So the key thing here is that it was the futures contracts that were expiring in May, right? They were just about to expire. That's where the price dropped. The reason why is that traders were running away from it because US inventories for oil are almost at a record high. There's a storage facility in Cushing, Oklahoma. So the oil producing states in the US are Oklahoma, I think North Dakota, Texas, and somewhere else. So Cushing has a storage facility of about 91 million barrels, and it's almost full. Why? Because of coronavirus. The coronavirus essentially has knocked out demand for oil, and we've seen that also happen with crude oil, which is where you saw OPEC doing all that stuff and They were trying to settle with Russia to try to cut production, led to the oil price war. Donald Trump got involved. They made agreements and settled and everything. But you know, essentially, the way the U.S. oil market works, there's a difference between WTI and crude. Crude oil is seaborne. You can deliver crude oil by ships across the world to where demand is. Yeah, you all remember Mele Kyari, the group managing director of the NNPC, saying that we've got a number of unsold cargoes that are yet to find buyers. And I think we're facing that same issue. I mentioned it yesterday for our May delivery of cargoes. So there are still ships that are just sitting there full of crude oil, our own Bonny Light, that are yet to be sold. But you can deliver them by ships. The US is a massive network of pipelines and storage facilities. So you can it's like it's landlocked, right? Cushing, Oklahoma, the big storage facility, they're all landlocked. You can't really ship their oil. It's basically just delivered in pipelines around the country. So essentially, the inventory is almost full, and there's almost nowhere to deliver the oil. So once again, you enter into a futures contract. There's a settlement date. There's a delivery date for that commodity, right? So again, if I use Valentine and myself as an example, the settlement date for the bag of rice Valentine wants to sell me is going to be in April of next year. When as April of next year is around the corner, then we're getting ready to settle. So the thing is, this is what happened with WTI futures for May, that we're settling in May. As May is drawing around the corner, they were like, look, there's no space for this oil. Coronavirus has dropped demand. Nobody is using the oil. The storage facilities are filling up. I don't want to deal with this thing. So you just saw a massive amount of selling that took place. Oil dropped to negative $36.73, and it was insane. Essentially, when it entered into negative territory, crude oil producers were essentially paying buyers to take the oil off their hands. But again, if you look at the charts for June settlements and for I think even June, July, May, those ones are still doing. I think June is still doing about 20 or something dollars a barrel. November, later dates are still there. But as we draw closer to those dates, if the coronavirus issues are not solved and demand is still low, you will possibly see what happened with these May futures contracts for WTI, for US oil, happening in June, July, and so on as we draw closer. So essentially, this is just derivatives. Derivatives are hedging options that derive their value from an underlying asset, and it's usually in commodities. It started with commodities, so oil, gold, silver, and stuff like that. But then it now later moved to financial markets where you can trade stock futures, bonds, and so on and so forth. So that's essentially what happened. The thing is, if this continues, this is the funny thing. Oga Trump, jumped in the middle of OPEC and was like, "Hey, I'm here to come and settle this matter between Russia and Saudi Arabia. I want a massive deal." He did all this one. Meanwhile, his people now, because of the lack of demand, oil companies now are in danger of job losses, because if you're not able to settle all these contracts and you can't sell your crude, you can't pay your staff salaries, and then there'll be defaults. So it's a really, really, really trying time for oil markets. But so just to clear up any confusion, this wasn't Brent crude, our own, our brand or our grade, Brent crude, that's still trading in the higher 20s. Although there are worries that we could see a record fall again. Although they've done their price cuts, that's OPEC price cut of 9.7 million barrels. That probably has saved crude from falling further. Although the supply glut is still pretty high. So it was really historic stuff. Markets were buzzing all over the place, and it was pretty much a wild day yesterday. It was very, very, very wild. Let's see here. We have a question. You need to send your name. Please assist with stock recommendations. Secondly, where can we always get this? Stock recommendations, again, before you hop into the stock market dropped yesterday, was minor drop, 0.1%. So there had been a bull run since last week. The bull run itself was preceded by volatility, where one day the stocks drop, the next day they increase, then they drop. It's very volatile, so you have to watch out. Blue chip stocks, the higher market cap stocks with established companies that pay dividends. You want to aim for stocks that pay dividends. So in addition to your capital appreciation, you are getting a return on your investment. So we've mentioned a number of names: your Dangote Cements, your GTBs, your Zeniths, so on and so forth. Although again, you've got to be careful. You got to talk to a financial advisor that you check your risk, and you have to be long term in this market, because there's really no what is the catalyst that's driving the Nigerian Stock Exchange right now? People are saying that there's not much activity going on in the I and E window. Foreign investors can't take their dollars out, so they're probably just forced to trade in the market right now. It's mostly high net worth domestic local investors that are pushing the market. So you got to be careful. You got to talk to a financial advisor. But again, the big market cap here. So Nestle is one. A lot of people have been recommending MTN and Airtel because during the COVID-19 period, a lot of people are going to be at home. A lot of people are going to be stuck watching video. I mean, you can't tell you how many videos I've watched on my phone now, how much data I've been renewing.
Same here.
So exactly. So they've got as for their cash flows are very good. The companies are looking to make. So you want to, and I think they also pay dividends as well. So you want to look at the telcos, the publicly traded telcos. So in addition to Zenith, GTB, Dangote Cement, Nestle, some of those big names. But again, please, as I'm giving you these names, talk to a financial advisor, and they will give you advice on how to proceed. So our guests on here, Stanbic, AfriInvest, ARM, Sigma Pensions, all these, you can reach out to any one of these number of brokers that can give you advice. Sign up for their newsletter. That's why if you look at my inbox now, my inbox is chock full of daily stock market updates from every possible broker across Nigeria and the world you can think of. You have to be tuned into this stuff and reading this stuff every single day to know what's going on with the markets. But although if you don't want to stress yourself, you can just get their updates, talk to an advisor. So that's what's happening with stocks.
There's another message here from Sheni.
Okay.
Sheni said, thank you very much for the analysis on all this morning, Rotus. I do hope you, Valentine, and the rest of the team are keeping safe. I was confused until this morning.
Okay, good. It's good to hear that we've cleared that up. Good to hear.
And Andy says, good morning. Now that all prices are below our budget benchmark, the government has to drastically cut on recurrent expenditures and invest massively in healthcare, technology, and agriculture. This is the only way we can survive for the next 2 decades.
Andy, you are spot on, Andy.
And Idowu says, well, hello guys, isn't there a fixed price in futures contract? I thought the buyer would have to buy regardless at maturity, and the contract protects the seller in this situation. Please clarify.
Yeah, so the futures contract, it is fixed. So you're entering into a contract that's going to be settled at a future date. Both futures and forwards are fixed, right? So because that's the whole point of hedging. Hedging is supposed to protect you against future price fluctuations. So again, using the bag of rice with Valentine will say, Rosso, so yeah, let's enter into this contract. So I will sell you this bag of rice at 25K in April of 2021. It's fixed. What I was saying, that futures are flexible in that Valentine can sell that contract to someone else if he wants to, or I can exit, but I have to transfer it to somebody. So you can take over the contract from me and buy the bag of rice at 25K from Valentine. And also the futures contracts trade on exchanges, so they can actually trade. So they're more liquid than forward contracts. But to answer your question, yes, the price that you enter into is fixed. So,
all right.
Yeah.
And Benga Kamo says, is it not better to hold your money and watch?
I think he's talking about the stock market. So,
okay.
Look, high risk, high reward. People who have made money in this market. Again, you just have to read often, talk to a financial advisor, have a long-term view. Because that's the only way. If you see market dropping now, you go and sell. That means you're not long-term. You get scared and spooked. But if you wait it out, prices appreciate over time.
Shagun says, good one on all prices, Rotus. Always exciting to listen to your analysis.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate you tuning in. As you tell your friends, family, and strangers to listen to
everyone.
Business
And Asian says, please explain how oil in Bonny Lights, explain how our oil is Bonny Light, but we sell Brent.
Right. So, I mean, Brent crude is your benchmark price, right? You benchmark it against all other grades of crude oil. But everybody has a different grade, so to speak. It's almost like, is it sweets or chewing gum? There's different flavors of chewing gum, right? There's your peppermint, there's watermelon chewing gum, there's orange, so different flavors. So you can think of it like that, in that our Bonny Light is a grade of crude oil. The same way you can take crude oil and you get diesel, you get kerosene, you get all these other derivatives. So Bonny Light is our own particular grade on this side, but we still benchmark against crude.
Please add your names to your messages. Kelvin says, good morning. How is oil trading at negative? Does it mean that the seller gives money to, in addition to the product?
Exactly. Once you fall negative, you're essentially paying the buyer to take it off your hands, because there's just, as I explained, there's just no room left in inventories, in almost no room left in US inventories. That's why they've been exiting, and that's what's been happening there.
Uche from our papa says, good morning, Rotus. Please, what's the state of Bitcoin transaction in this COVID-19 pandemic? Is it worth investing in presently?
Yeah, Uche, I'll be very honest with you. I've never really been encouraging of Bitcoin on this show because it's just too volatile. It rises and falls. Funny enough, people were expecting Bitcoin to be treated as a safe haven like gold. Usually, when markets are volatile, people rush into gold. Gold prices have gone from like 1,500 an ounce dollars or to almost what 1,700. Bitcoin, funny enough, it was rising, then it fell, rise, and then it fell. It's been very volatile, so I would not advise you. But again, I say that there are people I know who were just lucky and timed it properly and made a lot of money in Bitcoin. But it is too volatile. If you want to play with it with some small money you can afford to lose, then please go. It's almost like forex trading. I tell people to be careful with that as well. So yeah, it's
What
just
is
too
Ibrahim
risky.
talking about? Watermelon chewing gum.
No, Ibrahim, I think he maybe just tuned in. Ibrahim, somebody was asking me to explain Nigeria's how we sell our grade of Bonny Light crude oil versus the actual Brent crude oil. So I was just talking about oil in terms of different flavors, and the different grades of crude oil that are being sold. So I was just using chewing gum as an example.
Yes.
Yeah. What else is going on? Outside of oil, our traders, analysts are saying that Q1 GDP for Nigeria could fall to below 1%. So if you remember, our GDP figures for Q4 2019 was at 2.5%. Q1 2018 or Q1 2018, I believe, or Q1 2019 was at 1.9 or so, I believe, about 2%. So essentially, they're saying that because of what's happening with the coronavirus, we're going to see our GDP growth fall in half compared to what we saw during the festive period. And normally, Christmas, dirty December, party after party, there are lots of activities in December. So 2.5% was a decent growth, but as a result of what we've seen with the coronavirus and how it's affected. So although I should point out that this was in the latter stages of March, and the first quarter is looking at January, February, and March. So January and February were kind of okay, but then that's when you now started seeing shutdowns and things like that. So we're possibly seeing Q1 2020 GDP to fall at 0.9 or barely 1%. We're expecting those figures from the Bureau of Statistics on the 25th of May or 24th. So that's when we'll see Q1. Speaking of shutdowns, I heard Oga Sirika, the Minister of
Aviation, Hadi Sirika, yes.
Yeah, they've extended the
closure of airports by 2 weeks.
Another 2 weeks. The thing is, he
It
said
says it's consequence on the extension, the lockdown extension by the president.
right, but the thing that confused me is that he announced it yesterday, and he's saying, "Well, okay, fine." So we're not counting from yesterday when he announced
No. We're counting. So the first lockdown or first restriction of flights is supposed to end on the 23rd.
Along with the other
Yes,
lock.
so 2 days.
Fine.
Yeah.
2 days.
So he's saying essentially that after from 23rd, another 2 weeks extension.
Fine. I got confused when I saw it. When I started counting from yesterday when he made the announcement. We have one more week of the lockdown. You're extending lockdown of airports for 2 more weeks. So that's also. I mean, somebody answered. One young lady replied his tweet saying that, "Look, I've been wanting to come home. I haven't been able to fly back to Nigeria. I'm worried." So people are still stuck out there. Although I did mention yesterday that they're evacuating people from the UK and Dubai, depending on where you are. So you have to reach out to.
But officially, the major entry points, Abuja and Lagos.
They're still closed. So we're still here. We're still here. We're still watching.
Wale Kuponi on YouTube actually said lovely illustration of the futures and forwards. We have another message here on YouTube from KYAB. It says, please, what's the WhatsApp number to comment and contribute? Trust me, you guys are doing well.
Thank you.
KY is 0809 444 0981. That's our WhatsApp number. And we're out of time.
Yeah, all right. Thank you guys all for your message. Look, we appreciate you listeners. You're everything to this show. So please, as I said, tell your friends, family, and complete strangers to tune into Smooth 91 FM.
And if you missed any part of the show, go back to YouTube and type Smooth 91 FM Lagos and watch the recap. Thank you, Rotus. You can catch him on Twitter at Rotanquote, ROTANKWOT. Stay tuned to Smooth Breakfast.
So who's calling in?
Ikena 6 and Justin freshly pressed.
How do we, by the way, so Sonia said that, so Stanbic